This video was written by my wife, a former hijabi Muslim. As a woman, one of the allures of Islam was, in fact, hijab. You're sold the lie that you're a queen and it protects you from the male gaze, that your beauty is only for your husband. There is another side to the hijab though. It's a sort of psychological warfare that many women, including myself, experience when wearing the hijab. It's the realization that despite the reason wearing it being for Allah and to protect and hide our beauty from men, the same men we are covering for often gawk and ogle at women who do not wear the hijab. It's a sentiment that is often echoed by Muslim women everywhere, how resentful they are to cover, only to find out their husbands look at beautiful women everywhere around them, are cheating, addicted to pornography, or have an endless supply of non-hijabi women they are exposed to in daily life. It makes you wonder, what is the point of suffering in the scorching hot summers, seeking out only male doctors and submitting to a husband who does not deliver on his end of the deal? Today we'll explore how the hijab, designed to protect women, supposedly, is ultimately undone by the hypocrisy of the men it was meant to guard against. Hijab, I believed, was meant to protect women from the male gaze. But what happens when the very men we cover for betray the values they preach? How does that leave you feeling? Let's get into it. Muslim women misunderstand the reality of Muslim men. Today I have a Reddit post to share with you. After seeing many of these posts over the years, I feel like the Muslim community, especially Muslim women, have been duped. They have been duped into believing in an idealized version of Muslim men that simply do not exist. They live a life having no past, saving their virginity for a man, only to be completely devastated upon learning that they are married to someone who constantly looks at women, or even worse, a porn addict. Now, I'm going to add here, a lot of times these women are upset mainly because they are covering up. You find in the Muslim community a lot more insecurity about this than you would find among non-Muslim women that just wear whatever they want. They can go out, they can be attractive, they can enjoy being looked at and looking beautiful. Whereas Muslim women have to make themselves basically unattractive. And so there's this constant, comparison to the men, that their man looking at other women who are not covered up. Imagine how that makes you feel. Anyways, in this post, she says she was deceived and felt as though she was marrying a pious man that never watched porn or looked at another woman. Let's see what she ended up getting though. Okay, so this says, feel I wasted my piousness, chastity, and virginity on a lustful man who I now consider divorcing. I was deceived. I thought I was marrying a pious man who respected women and saved himself for marriage. While he did not sleep with anyone, supposedly, he would get off to a new woman every day. To me, that is not saving yourself for marriage if you have a sex life with thousands of women. We spoke about this topic of porn and masturbation. I said, I don't condone any porn in my marriage. It's zina and find porn users undesirable, as most of us do. I asked kindly for him to stop talking to me if he does or ever struggled with this issue. He lied and said he did not, said he agreed, and it was a major sin. But I found out 4 months into our marriage, he was in fact an addict. He would use every night to help him sleep, and he did while living with me in the same house while I was in another room studying. When I first found out, I was extremely upset. He saw this and he said he felt bad. The same day he came upstairs after I saw it on the router logs, comforted me, then goes back downstairs and watched it again to do one last time. This really hurt me that he could see how upset I was that he had betrayed me, and then in the same hour go watch it again in another room. This didn't just happen just one time. He stopped for about a month until I had to return to my hometown to see my parents for 5 days. Less than 24 hours I had been gone, he watched it again. I caught him as I'm very tech savvy and knew how to see. He called me crying and said to give him another chance. Less than an hour after, he watched it again. I said I was leaving him and he was crying and crying, asking for one more chance. After the other 5, he downloaded blockers, tracking, etc., and hasn't been able to access it since. I've been trying really hard to move on from the betrayal of all this, to the point I just want to be set free. I just don't want to worry about what he is doing while I'm gone. He works at home while I stud in the office this week to a job I'm very happy to have. But no, I'm just going to worry about what he's doing at home. I just don't want to do it anymore. The damage has been done. I can't see him the same anymore. I've been trying to get him back to how it was, but it's been like 8 months and I haven't made any progress in my trust. And how I see him, being able to see having kids and a future with him. Now I feel like I'm stuck because I gave him my virginity. I feel like he never deserved it and I should have given it to a faithful and honest man. I really don't want to feel this way and want to have a happy marriage, but the hurt and resentment runs really deep for how I was treated. Now I battle with the thoughts of my security during childbirth and pregnancy. I can't imagine having such damage and changes happening to my body while he watches fit/not pregnant women during my most vulnerable moments in my life. It makes me not want to have kids with them at all. Now I feel like most are like this as I read about this issue. They say every man does it. No matter the religion, it makes me want to just stay away. It's defeating. Edit, please stop and don't DM me. Edit again, men of the sub, do not DM me telling me to do it with him and post my own porn. What is wrong with you? No brothers message me. Ugh. I understand that a lot of Muslim girls grow up very sheltered and unaware of what young men do. But it is unfortunate that it took such a permanent decision, such as marriage, to find out that she married a porn addict. You see, this is another problem with Islam. You don't really get to know the person until you marry them. You don't get to live with them until you marry them. You don't get to stay alone with them until you marry them. So you get a lot of surprises with Islam. Going back to the main topic, this is why hijab sucks. In a perfect Islamic world, men would lower their gaze too, but they do not. Clearly, the biology supersedes any threats of Jahannam or hellfire or punishment. This is not limited to only Muslim men acting like this. Obviously, men from every background struggle with addiction. But Islam makes it worse by enforcing hijab on girls under the guise of protecting themselves and being some respectable covered woman for these men. Meanwhile, Muslim men are prevented from talking to women or dating before marriage, so they often find other ways to deal with urges and desires. Many will also date and have girlfriends, using them as a placeholder until they get the covered hijabi wife. It's a toxic cycle and a deception bestowed upon women to believe that men are just waiting for them, not looking at other women, masturbating, or even having sex. You are not helping yourself or them by covering. Muslim men will simply divert their gaze elsewhere. I get it. It sounds nice to hear your entire life that hijab is a crown. You've been taught to believe that you are some respected class of women, different from those sharmuta, disbelieving women, dressing how they want and living their life, completely unaware they are tempting your men by simply existing. Some women go as far to wear the niqab, the full face cover, to avoid the attention of men. They cover their faces and hands to avoid a man seeing any inch of their body. Muslim men will find zero issue with this since they don't want to look at covered women, whether they're married or not. Let's look at this classic lollipop meme. I love this picture. It's been around for years. This whole idea of women being wrapped versus unwrapped. The irony here is Muslim men also give more attention to non-hijabis, which means that Muslim men are the flies. By the way, if you're new here and you like this content, subscribe now as we'll be uploading more videos dissecting the social issues in Islam. You may have been limited in your ability to live on your own, study away from home, or even travel without a non-mahram, depending on how strict your husband is, because of Muslim men. You are taught to wear hijab, avoid talking to men, which you readily complied with at the suggestion of probably your parents. Now, you're getting married, and you are excited for this man that's supposed to have ghira, like jealousy, protective jealousy for you, and he only wants you. You're thinking he lived his life the same way you lived yours, observing modesty and avoiding what is forbidden. Look at this example in this thread. You can't make this up. It's the same story, different person. Women avoid men while men redirect their urges and desires to haram opinions. I had the same thoughts too, sister, after my first marriage ended. It broke me on a deep level. I spent my entire life guiding myself from haram. I was even scared to talk to men, so I didn't displease Allah. I stayed clean and pure. Then I married a man who basically admitted his family forced him to marry me and he was abusive toward me in so many ways. It took me a while to overcome that feeling that I had wasted my life on him, but what helped is knowing that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wrote this for me and I was meant to go through it. Okay. Also, life is not what we want it to be. It's unfair, hard, and good people suffer. It's all meant to bring us closer to Allah. Do not allow yourself to feel less than. You did everything the halal way and that should give you peace. Fascinating. So basically, the point of Islam is to suffer. God wants you to suffer, to keep yourself pure and a virgin and chaste, and marry a man that's abusive. Yeah, that's what Allah wants, apparently. It's all in His divine plan, right? Maybe look at the system and how it leads to such conclusions. Maybe look at the system and see what results come of it. If the results are bad, maybe the system is bad. Ever thought about that? And in this case, the system is your religion. The Quran even instructs him to lower his gaze and protect his chastity, but is that enough? The reality is you are covered to protect no one. If you think you're protecting yourself, ask yourself, who is this helping? Because instead of you being looked at, the men are diverting the attention to uncovered women. You are doing a disservice to yourself wearing hijab while Muslim men continue to behave the way that they always have. Muslim men undo the hijab and its purpose by redirecting their desires to uncovered women. The problems will become evident after you make permanent, legally binding decisions. It sounds wonderful on the surface to live an Islamic lifestyle, almost like an alternate reality where none of this stuff exists. You commit to your duties as a Muslim woman to cover properly, and your man is supposed to do the same, despite the male hijab basically meaning he can dress how he wants. The limitations for men have nothing to do with their concealing their attractiveness like women. The hijab quite literally encourages a woman to look unattractive by not wearing makeup, perfume, or anything that'll get the attention of men. If you want to see just how bad it is for women, check out a haram beauty video that highlights in great detail just how restrictive Islam is for women. Everything from plucking eyebrows to nail polish is forbidden. Imagine the shock of finding out that after the great lengths you went to abstain from haram things, that your now husband or potential you've been talking to has been quietly cultivating a porn addiction for years. You have no way to find out. Here is yet another example of a Muslim woman with a misinformed understanding of the reality of Muslim men. I remember speaking to someone around 2 years ago now who had a porn addiction. We hadn't been talking for long and I caught this through his IG following list. He claimed he didn't know about the 50 plus porn accounts he was following. I blocked him immediately and told him I was no longer interested. He reached out and apologized and then gaslit me when I didn't agree. He said I would never be able to find someone who didn't watch porn in this day and age. And I said that's fine because I didn't want someone who couldn't save themselves like I had done. You're absolutely correct. Saving yourself till marriage isn't saving your literal virginity. It's keeping yourself away from the bad in this world, guarding your heart and sight from everything there is. And I know as women, we are given constant lectures from family and society, but men don't get the same. Apparently, it's not a big deal because Allah has made men like this, LOL. Yes, I agree men are made like this, but does not give them a free pass on sex and everything their needs met from anywhere and everywhere. I'm not really sure what advice to give, but I think a man who would not even have the decency to at least try to stop on his own regard. Someone who couldn't even be honest with you at the beginning will never be until he wants to be, because they are all empty promises. Maybe if he had told you he had struggled with this before marriage, you may have given him the benefit of the doubt if you felt he was serious in his desire to stop. You may have even tried to help him, but he just keeps going back because he knows you will just understand or that you are too in love to leave. But your self-respect, not ego, needs to be bigger than anything else you give of yourself in a marriage, because until you don't respect yourself and your morals, values, no one will ever listen or respect you in the way you want them to. You know, it is true that women have to have standards, Muslim women have to have standards, and they have every right to be upset if the man watches pornography. It's unfortunately a bigger issue because Islam is supposed to be helping men. It's supposed to be helping marriages. It's supposed to be making the situation better. It doesn't seem to be making anything better. Did you notice that? The problems are, if not just as bad with non-Muslims, they're even worse. They're even worse now, right? This is a common theme. Women save themselves sexually for their husbands and naively believe Muslim men have never looked at another woman in any way. Men do have eyes though, and men do look. Not all men are addicted like Op's husband, but it would be foolish to assume they're blind or never look. Islam is not a protective fence that keeps the haram away, despite all of the warnings from Islamic sources and Muhammad. Muslim men will also use their urges and desires as a reason to justify having a second, third, and fourth wife, which they can take without your permission. In the past, this would have included having concubines. Look at what Op received in her DMs from Muslim men. Oh, you don't even want to know what my DMs look like. Brother's telling me if I won't let him watch porn, I must allow him to get 4 wives, otherwise I'm taking away his rights for his desires. Some told me to watch with him. Some told me to make my own porn for him to watch. Honestly, I had little hope for the brothers in our ummah, but now there is very far less. I'm truly disappointed. This is what happens when you follow a religion that shames absolutely everything except marriage. Men will find another secret outlet, and when they do marry, they're going to immediately encounter issues in their sex life. Now that they have a real Muslim woman that covers and remains pure for them, it does not matter. It doesn't matter. It's not enough to satisfy their desire, having built up this virtual relationships, not being able to date and not being able to have any sort of girlfriends. Even having a real woman that they waited for their entire life. Some might say men's flaws don't invalidate the purpose of hijab. But how would this make you feel? In the fitna video we made, we discussed how a hijabi woman was so upset that her husband went to a mixed gym while she was all dressed up from head to toe, and she didn't like that he was looking at the women there. Check it out now. Also, one more thing. These men that are telling her that she needs to, make porn for them or whatever, obviously this isn't going to solve the problem. The problems here are much deeper. There's a massive incompatibility that is going to be very hard to resolve. In this case, he needs to probably just go to a clinic to try to get off his addiction, because he has an addiction. Unless it's not an addiction and he just wants to do it and he doesn't care what she thinks, and it's an addiction if he wants to stop and he can't. But maybe he doesn't want to stop, and in that case, there's a huge incompatibility. And unfortunately for her, she's stuck with this man now, right? So what do? You have to be more careful, and unfortunately, Islam doesn't make it easy for you to find this out before marriage. In conclusion, what does all of this mean? It means that the hijab, while marketed as a shield of protection and a mark of respect, can easily be undone. Not by the women wearing it, but by the actions of the very men it's supposed to safeguard them from. These men, who are supposed to lower the gaze and practice self-restraint, often fall short in ways that leave women disillusioned and questioning the purpose of it all. If most women don't wear hijab, what's the point of this small group of women wearing it? The reality is this. Women are asked to sacrifice their comfort, their freedom, and even parts of their identity to meet a standard that men themselves rarely live up to. And when the truth finally comes out, whether it's through a marriage, a random discovery, or years of internal struggle, it leaves many women wondering, why are we the ones carrying this burden? Why are we taught to build our lives around ideals that men don't seem to take seriously? Hijab is presented as a personal choice, but it's also tied to a system that puts unfair expectations on women while allowing men to sidestep their responsibilities. Until that imbalance is addressed, Muslim women should continue to question the role of hijab in their lives and whether it's truly worth it to uphold something that's so easily undone by the very people it was meant to involve. Thanks for watching. Shout out to my partner in crime, my life partner, my wife, my love of my life, who did an amazing job working with me on this script. If you'd like to support us, check the Patreon or even click join now on YouTube to become a channel member. Thanks for watching. This is your friendly ex-Muslim Abdullah Samir and wifey signing out.